박사님 그리고 아흐메드 마흐tov의 공동 발표가 있겠습니다. 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. Dr. Ghoneim, I can give you around 15 minutes presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So, I'm George Saudi, as introduced me. I'm Egyptian and I live in the United Arab Emirates. Very happy to be with you here. It's not my first time to visit South Korea. Actually, it's number 4. So, why I give my lecture this name, which is the changing equation of balance and power and balance of power and influence in the new Middle East and the impact, because this is the main goal of Israel, which is the source of the conflicts going on right now. I will talk right now about I will jump to the weapons used and the most expected weapons to be used more, and then I will go to my recommendations, very humble from my side, and maybe it will be helpful. So that weapons have been used as ballistic missiles, suicide unmanned aerial vehicles, also anti-ship missiles, suicide unmanned boats, because we have towards air, navy, and also terrain one, that we have rocket artillery, which are Millers, and we have also UAVs. Those are used most. In addition, this one is this is the system that's being used more, and I can say increase and tension in the region. These 3 types, specifically, which is ABM anti-ballistic missiles, and also SAM surface-to-air missiles, in addition to electronic means. Those which I go very quickly go through them, they are mainly, whatever the types, they are mainly used. If I talk more specific, I can say when we talk about Iran, they concentrated on ballistic missiles. So when we talk about Israel, they concentrated more anti-ballistic missiles, the air defense systems they have, which is really very huge. And remember, they were not fighting alone against Iran, but they were defending themselves, supported by France and by United States of America, by what we call it echelons of air defense. So we find the fighters of the United States and electronic warfare as well, and beside France, even the Navy, these destroyers of the United States, they help it to cover the gaps of the air defense of Israelis, they help it much. But anyway, in addition to the Iron Dome and other like THAAD and Patriot or whatever Israeli had, really they were used much. That's why, in addition to the Air Force by Israel, especially when they do attacks against Iran and Houthis, so this was the biggest. But drones we cannot ignore, because really they work very, very big, especially from the non-state actors. When I talk about Houthis in Yemen, also by Iranian as well. So when I come here, notice this please, that we have 16 states possess cohesive regular armies in our region. In our region, we have 22 Arab nations, and we have mainly 3 non-Arab nations, which are Turkey, Israel, and Iran. I can add Pakistan actually as a wider Middle East. However, but Turkey, Israel, and Iran, which are non-Arab nations, and they are producing countries. They can produce everything, including mainly for sure defense industries, in addition to the 22 Arab nations. But among them, we have really 16 cohesive armed forces. But why I tell you that? Because some countries now they are failed state. When I talk about Yemen, when I talk about Syria, Lebanon, Sudan as well. So you have to keep in your mind, all in the industrial countries, that they will form their new armed forces, and then they will have, when they form them, the weapon systems they will use. And then maybe a country like Korea will find a very good place to build up a new weapon system, especially, like, if I give example like Egypt. Egypt was pro-Russia more with our systems until October War 1973, and then became United States American, the American weapons, right? So more and other, we are, diversifying our source. But when we talk now about those 4 countries, when I talk about Yemen, about Sudan, about Lebanon, about Syria, especially Syria for South Korea. I think when they are building up their armed forces, then you can find better place as well beside other countries which I mentioned, Egypt, Gulf states. Why? After the strike against Hamas in Qatar, I can prove to you that country like Egypt, before them, to be honest, Gulf states also, they started to think about two main things. Number one, multi-international, multi-military relations, not only United States. Number two, multi-source of weapons, not only United States. They start to think about that, as Egypt is doing maybe sometime before them. Here, when it comes, so when I go here to from February, we found something that in Gulf states only, there are 1,129 air defense units are in need to be replaced. And remember what I told you. It's not always I have to replace American by American, French by French. Like if I talk about Egypt away from Gulf states, just we are replacing some in my country, meaning Egypt, was the country which I live in, some French air defense systems with American air defense systems. And it's for some reason, I will tell you after, when it comes now to Gulf states, they start to think more not only Americans. And that's why it will drive me to one of my advices or suggestions, even I added it to the others in my discussions here. Then you have really, I believe that there are some challenges you can find in our region. So like funding, financing. I'm sure that a country like Korea, I think you are unique in that you try not only to export weapons, but to create platforms of joint ventures, of joint industries, transferring technology. However, when you transfer technology, we were talking about chassis of vehicles, armored vehicles. So a country like Egypt can continue with its current technology to transfer the technology, right? Current, I mean industry environment. But Egypt, for example, cannot take the whole engine, the whole technology of the engine of the army vehicle. Maybe you can find in United Arab Emirates, in Saudi, in Qatar especially, more, in this. When you transfer your technology, it will be from country to another. This is, when it comes to fund, a country like Egypt, sometimes, why Egypt replace the French, as I told you, defense system with American one? Because we find a space, for example, that there is some bank in the United States can fund this in behalf of Egypt and then make installment to give them. Maybe France, they don't have. Why Egypt bought Rafale? Because Rafale, as I told you, there is some funding system easier in France. They can do that. So when you think, I'm not talking about the platform and cooperation, but when it comes here to Korea, for example, if you'd like to export, think about funding, especially with poor countries or bad economic countries. And then when it comes to next, okay. We will go more to the soft power. It's for my colleague, Mr. Ahmed Mahgoub. I'm trying to talk on behalf of him in this, and a very brief. Okay, as my colleague before me mentioned that 43% by the Americans, the sales, but you find the Middle East taking 27% of the sales all over the world, which is really very big. And as I told you, I can confirm that really it will be multinational importing. So will it be this 27 mostly from the Americans? I don't think so from the coming time. Especially when I talk about Gulf states. But you have to think about something very important, Canada. Canada especially, they had very good relations before with the United States. 90% of the Canadian trade in general was the United States. Now, because of Mr. President Trump, Canada started to think differently. They start to think about the Middle East. But the problem with Canada, maybe it's a problem with Korea as well, that they are thinking about threats, which are coming in the next point. You have a lot of restrictions as a very democratic country. I cannot give the Middle Eastern countries these kind of weapons for humanitarian reasons, human reasons. I mean, for maybe these weapons will be in, somehow goes to conflicts between non-state actors and civil wars in Sudan, in Yemen. Yes, but trust me when I tell you, and now I talk about Canada, I'm not sure about Sweden, I'm not sure about others, but maybe they will rethink again, what we do with these restrictions. Should we reduce them? So this will be like challenge and advantage. But here comes to some very, very nice advantage to Korea, that when we like to sell something to our region, we will find small challenge and small opportunity in front. That if your component, if your, let me say, aircraft is a joint venture or participated by United States, you'll find challenge. It's not easy to sell it in the Middle East because of the balance of power, among the Middle Eastern countries. So maybe the United States will tell you, no, I cannot do that because of the balance of power. But if it's pure Korean, then you have the right to do it very easily. So when it comes here, you will find also from the soft power quality, credibility, and fake news. Let me tell you about this. I'm Muslim, okay? So I believe in God like Christians, like Jewish, and so on. So we believe in God through messengers. Prophet Muhammad, Prophet Jesus, and so on, and Prophet Isaac, and so on. What is the point here? When you believe it in God through messages, through messengers, so you like messages more than thinking. So fake news can find a very good soil that you like messages without reasons. Think about the mentality when you're dealing. That's why we are talking here as a soft power. When you approach the mentality of the people, remember, it's not always you have to think why I give you that, but think always that the fake news are working very well, but Russia especially. So, yes, Korea have some advantages, as I told you, but I would like to talk to you about potential competitors. Look at this. You will find that, for example, USA, the most advanced technology. That's why they have 43%. But they have some challenges for them. High prices, very costly actually. Also, political conditions, restrictions, as I told you, in addition to sensitivity among allies. Like, do you remember when I told you fake news, populism in our region? So people don't like United States, regular people. And they affect the decision makers by social media, by the way. So they don't like European, and this affects the sales. I remember, I'm a daily guest in TVs, and one of the things we were talking about that Egypt bought NASMAS to replace, as I told you, this French air defense system. I found the people, why you buy from United States? There are enemy of humanity. They are killing people, and this is one of the restrictions for them. If it comes to Russia, so they have no political conditions, no restrictions, which is very good to our, environment. Also, very low prices, but again, aging technology is very old, and we start to discover that, especially after the Ukrainian war. Really, now nobody cares much about the Russian production. Crowded domestic production lines, in addition to U.S. sensitivity. This GASTA and those laws and so on. When it comes to China, yes, they have advanced technology, no doubt about that, large scale production, competitive prices, but high US sensitivity in addition to low combat proven record, actually. It's proven somehow, and remember, one of the advantages China believes that they don't, fight wars, but it's not also advantages. It's advantage because your weapons not used. And when we talk about India, Pakistan, and they use their Chinese aircraft, but actually, when we talk as experts or specialists, it was for multi-domain operations and the tactics used by the pilots. It's not because a Chinese aeroplane or aircraft against French Rafale with India, for example. And then finally, Europe. Advanced technology, but also heavy bureaucracy inside the countries themselves, political conditions, and busy production lines. And then, let me tell you our proposals, actually. We put them together with my colleagues. We believe that think much about funding. And remember something, I have a very connection internationally. And from some decision makers in India and around, I knew that we bought Rafale because Egypt bought Rafale. Not because Egypt is example, but Egypt is a big country and they have their pilots, they are fighting country, and also when they tried it, so it was very good example to the Indian to buy it. So, and that's why some countries try to watch countries like Egypt, like Gulf states maybe, I'm not sure, and to say, okay, this one has been perhaps very well in this hot area, then maybe we can buy it. Also, combined, this is a kind of combined industry. It's good that you are doing that, and really it will help to increase and open the door more. Yesterday, I was one of the companies here, and he asked me, how can I transfer technology full for, as I told you, chassis, but partially for the engine. I called one of my students, he's serving officer, and he is expert in vehicles. Not expert, he's specialized in vehicles, army vehicles. And he told me a very good point, please tell them to concentrate on transferring technology. Because there is something very important here. Right. Again, when I tell you Egypt, when I tell you UAE, they have multi-sources of weapons. So, few years ago, we got this kind of equipment, which is army vehicle from Germany, from France, maybe third country. So, what I take from you now, just assembling it. But if you give me something more pricing, because pricing maybe will be good opportunity when you come in the beginning, you know, with them in a tender. But when it's later than them, so tell me, I'll give you the franchise. And then it will be more protected and open more to them and help them. And remember, those countries, that's why even Gulf states, they try to make industries inside Egypt because of cheap labor and huge amount. Egyptian, by the way, are aware, 110 millions, 60% are youth. And, you know, unemployment, you know, this kind of administration, economic challenges. However, so we are ready to accept that. Also, when it comes to it also combined defense industries, which I mentioned, and this also will reduce the cost, will reduce your cost. Because I remember, I knew that if you come with a franchise in those countries, you can open industries, you can establish industries, especially for you. And with low cost labor, this will reduce your cost for sure. And also this will increase your companies and market. I remember what I told you about the 4 countries which are failed state and they have to form their armed forces. So it will be maybe good opportunity for any country with a cohesive armed forces who can receive you with very good, you have very good reputation in our region, actually. So maybe this will help you when you have this kind of industrial base inside the region to help the new armed forces which are going to be re-established again. And it will help you for sure for increase your production. This is the last slide. I'm trying to finish it very quickly. Okay, so deepen the military cooperation. If you ask any Egyptian decision maker, what do you think? What do you want right now? 2 things. Increase military cooperation, multi-military cooperations with nations, training, mutual exercises, mutual training, scholarships, and so on. And second, to diversify, as I told you, change, make multi-source of weapons sources. This is really now very important because, you know, after this strike against Hamas leaders in Qatar, what was the feeling? Gulf countries, they had the feeling, and maybe you can support or not what I say now, they had the feeling that we are the highest priority to the Gulf states. And Israel supported. But after this strike, no, we have no priority, you know, of protection beside Israel. So that's why they start to think they cannot change Israel, but they can change the United States. So in this, Israel is there. So they had to think, okay, we have to think about other sources. And then, also, China. To be honest, very straightforward. China is very big. When I think about, like when I was in Taiwan one day, I had been asked by a very big one, and he told me what to do with China. He said, if you think about China as enemy, so you're lost. But if you think about China as neighbor, I don't say good neighbor or good friend or whatever, it's something else. So whatever, one China policy, two China policy, something else. But what I'm saying here, I believe when you think about China, why not to integrate with them to complete what they don't have? It's better than competition. Because really, I think Chinese in our region, they need to have a big place in the region, but at the same time, they cannot. We think like this. We are from the Middle East, we look at the Far East, South China Sea. We believe that China looks about the surrounding that you are in my area. You are guests here. So maybe I can accept you in the Middle East as guest, or maybe not. I'm telling you very, very realistic, you know. So it's something like that. If I were Korean, I think. Additionally, okay, what else? And I'm finishing. Yeah, I'm finishing. Yeah. 3 more points now, very quickly. There are Israel has asked it to have air defense, combined air defense with Gulf states. I don't think they trust them anymore, so maybe Korea can participate in that. Second one, that artificial intelligence, please think about using them with a database in our region, how to use it. And last one, that avoid accusing or insulting North Korea in our region. In our region. This is not good with you. Finished, and thank you so much.
네, 감사합니다. 15분의